Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of our podcast. Wanted to kind of change track a little bit. The last, I think, 4 or 5 episodes, we've tried to speak about some of the things that are a bit more kind of individual to us. We've talked about mentorship, we've talked about what inspires us, we've talked about um, some of that kind of those elements where negative traits can be turned into positive traits. And last time we talked about some questions that you can ask yourself to kind of keep yourself on track. I think what I want to really talk about today, and Maurizio's got a lot of experience with this, is really thinking about back into the business, back into the kind of sales side of things, and start to talk about some themes that are hopefully going to help us um, grow our revenues in the second half of 2024. And today's subject is one that I think is dear to my heart. I know Maurizio and I have talked about this a lot. And I think, people are talking about it more and more out there more generally, but this notion of actually like where the sales motion is at in terms of like the approach to things today. And I think our belief that really it's going from that kind of sales led to that buyer led kind of motion. And I think that's what I really want to kind of talk about today. Um, I'll dig into what I mean by that a little bit to begin with. And then we've got kind of 3 areas or 3 motions that we're going to talk about that are a result of this change in behavior, and also kind of what it means um, to run a buyer-led approach. So I think the important thing for me is, and we talked about like bias centricity in the first place, of that element of, giving people enough information to know that they're doing a lot of the research themselves, they're finding a solution that looks like it's the right fit for them, and actually giving the opportunity to get into the product and really try it out. The world of SaaS in particular has been going, down that route for a long time. But I think this is more about, well, what happens when that buyer is in your ecosystem? They've made those steps to go, okay, is this the right thing for me? Does it look like they're talking about the things that I, need and is going to help me overcome my challenges? But really, it's about what can we do at that point? And the way that I think about it is like, how can we create an experience in that moment? Or how can we just create an appropriate touch point that everyone gets, that helps us better understand what they're hoping to get out of the experience, or like what type of buyer they are, so we know how we can help them through that journey. And that's why I think, it's that buyer-led motion that I refer to it as, is because actually it's about combining probably 3 things. So number one, intelligence. What can we understand about that buyer? What can we understand about how they've interacted with the product? The second thing would be empathy. How can we match intelligence with empathy to actually show that we're starting to understand them, that we're not just, creating a one-stop shop experience. It's a bit more of actually it's pertinent to that person. And how do we combine those 2 things with awareness around perhaps the challenge that they've got, or at least being able to ask what the challenge may be that's specific to them, that hopefully, in our case, Stockpress can overcome. So the way that I think about this, and the way that the journey breaks down, is that they're almost like 3 opportunities, and people can move fluidly through those 3 opportunities. But it all comes down to, how do you create a singular moment in the first place that helps us understand how we organize people into these 3 places. And Maurizio and I can kind of talk through that now. So if I highlight the 3 areas that we identify, and then maybe we can just break each one down a little bit more. And who knows, it probably makes for another podcast episode to kind of go through these steps in a little bit more detail, because there's a lot to cover otherwise. So the 3 steps in my mind, and the first one could probably have 2 terms. I know which one I prefer, but support assist or sales assist. Then we've got what I'm referring to as sales accelerator. This notion that actually some people need a little bit of a helping hand just to go on to that next level. And then a term that we use is premium sales. Funnily enough, we kind of push back on the term enterprise because actually people find value in a solution regardless of the scale, and sometimes they're not necessarily an enterprise to have that like number one use case that people see. So we prefer that kind of premium sales idea where people are going to like really need that kind of premium experience, probably a little bit more hand holding than otherwise. So I think let's talk about it. So, this notion of support and sales assist, I know Maurizio, it's something that you really believe in, is meeting people at the right point in the journey. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are on, like, we'll go through each of these steps as a bit of an overview.
Yeah, and I don't mean to, or didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm actually going to take a step back. And the premium sales versus enterprise sales, there's no such thing as enterprise. Like what you were referring to, it's like it doesn't matter the scale of a business. It's like if they have a problem, if they have an issue, like at the end of the day, you are having conversations with these teams within enterprises, within
Yeah.
corporations. So I really don't believe in the enterprise sale because it's not about the enterprise. It's about the person, it's about the
Yeah.
team, it's about the relationship that you form with them.
Well,
So
just on that, I've always felt it kind of makes people feel like they shouldn't buy into it when it's called enterprise. If they look at it and they're like, well, that's not for me because I'm not an enterprise, but they might still need all the things that are in that kind of version of a product. So yeah, that was the thinking behind that.
yeah, for sure. And I think, I think the support assist and the sales assist is crucial. Like regardless if you have like a PLG approach, to me, this stage is all about building trust, right? Because change for any business, regardless if it's free, like there's no such thing as a free lunch, but regardless if you have a premium, a freemium model or whatever, doing something different, that cost of change, of changing the way how you do things, regardless if there's a price tag on that change or
Yeah.
not, initially, of course, it's very, very, very hard. So building that relationship, ensuring that that person and that team have what they need in order to go through that motions to sort of dip their toes in that new lake, right, is going to be crucial, into sort of, because you gotta deliver value to build trust, and everybody, and more so in this day and age, everybody's like this, right? Everybody has their guard up. Everybody, it's a universe of mistrust. Everybody has like a shitty experience or a couple of shitty experiences in the past that they don't want to, repeat.
Yeah.
So in this first initial phase, I think it's primarily about trying to understand that person, understand that team, understand the why are they looking at you if they're looking at you, and understands like what is happening, right? That you're having this conversation, or if you're going outbound, it's like what might be happening that they replied to your outbound message, to your cold call. It's like what's happening that they are somewhat interested in having a conversation and hearing from you, giving you those 30-35 seconds. So that to me is very important. This is the tip of the iceberg, delivering value to build trust, to reduce that friction and bring that guard down.
Yeah.
And
But
it's a crucial step in the process.
and I think for me, that's the biggest part of that is this is just an opportunity to say we're here. Like, you've probably been through a process so far where you've not talked to anyone in our business. You've hopefully found out loads of great information yourself. You've had an opportunity to try something out, like that sales assist, support assist, whatever you want to call it. It is that moment where you're like, actually, we're going to lift the curtain up on this a little bit to say, yeah, there are people here, we're accessible, And, we want to be here to answer those questions. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. That bit is the trust builder. And it's the bit that's really accessible to everyone. Like people can choose to buy into that moment and we can learn a little bit more about them. And, actually at that point, we might say, well, based on the questions that have been asked, this really kind of makes sense to try and hop on a call and show off some of the things that they might not be able to get immediately to value in terms of within the product itself. We'd hope that everyone can kind of see everything in the way that it needs to work, but actually sometimes there are those slightly more complex use cases, and it's about us helping other people and our potential customers to get the most out of the platform. And that's very different to being inaccessible. It's about just making sure that you're there to aid success. And I think that probably is the bit in that sales accelerator, the second part of this that then becomes important is, okay, we've helped someone get to value, we've helped lift the curtain on things so that they know that there's someone there. But now it's almost that opportunity to say, well, actually, where's the appropriate place for you to land with our product so that you can get the most out of it? We can then believe that we're delivering the most value. And I think that's what we mean by that kind of sales accelerator element. And it might be success accelerator. Like, again, these names are pretty malleable. They don't necessarily have to mean a lot externally as long as we know what the value is internally. And for me, it's like, how can we help you get to success quicker, which in turn is probably going to bring more success to our business. And again, create that touch point where we can understand a little bit more about that customer and how we can help them.
Yeah. And I think that it's not, but at this stage, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, and your intention behind it. Because there are going to be a bunch of people that really don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
They still feel that, or they're hurt by previous annoying experiences that they just don't want to have a conversation. But
Yeah.
maybe they're open to being better directing in the product and helping them solve some use cases. You're gonna see the entire spectrum. Some people that are going to be asking a lot of questions that are, you know, that are not as hands on. Other people that have tried and I've done a bunch of these, like PLG freemium implementations in the past, and they're good
Yeah.
flying solo. So it's just being there for them with the right message at the right time, and understanding that many people are not going to want to have a conversation. It's like LinkedIn. Whenever I see a connection request that says or doesn't have a message, that's an immediate no. Or has a message and says synergies, it's like 5 years ago, all right, yeah, senior synergies, let's have a conversation. But now synergies, that to me as a sales,
Yeah.
it's
It's
like
kind
I'm
of a
gonna
given.
blast you with whatever solution that
Yeah.
I'm selling. So it's very annoying.
Yeah. Well,
And
and
I
that's,
think as the go ahead.
I think it's the beauty of this motion is it is, it's responsive and it's about doing the good job when people have those moments with you. And like, I think the point being is that we have fewer and fewer opportunities to probably make that first impression. And I think, if you don't make the most of that opportunity, then it can be very, very hard to either retain that person in the first place. Like you might get a second chance if you're lucky, but that second chance has to be incredibly impressive. And it's about making sure that you don't lose that initial momentum and that it all feels like nice and appropriate. And I think I do think there's a lot more to talk about on this. So let's look forward to episode 19 and carry on the conversation because I think we bring that kind of premium sales side of things into it because I think there's actually a lot to talk about there. But I think, we have this belief that buyer centricity is really important. It's also about controlling that motion and making sure that we're actually being active and, on top of things. So I think let's look forward to episode 19, chat about that then. And for now, we'll say goodbye. Take care, everyone.
I